project that we were going to discuss today was very special for both of us because it's a once-in-a-lifetime project.
What was very exciting for us is it's the first Hindu Mandir in Abu Dhabi, the largest one, and it was actually initiated by the governments of India and UAE. And the UAE government actually was very generous in allocating a huge piece of land, almost 13 acres. The BAPS organization, they went to the rulers of Abu Dhabi, and then they said you have two options. One is you can make a big box and put the temple inside, so it's secluded. The other is to actually do it traditional way, like how we do it in India, where the temple stands out. And to their surprise, the rulers said they actually want to celebrate the temple. The whole concept which we came up with in terms of the master plan was to have at the heart the stone temple is intricately carved in India, shipped here in blocks and assembled.
I can only compare it to the pyramids. And it's monolithic and it's all structurally loaded with gravity. The temple is made of this beautiful sandstone, but then all our buildings around it is inspired by the color of the desert and the landscape.
When the thoughts were put together that the surrounding complex is going to be ultra modern, very minimalist, but yet respecting the temple in terms of how we align the lines on the facade to the stone temple, they were so receptive. In fact, they pushed us to go into that direction more than anyone else.
We were invited to India by the sadhus, and we had a 1 week or 2 weeks tour of India, going to their most iconic temples, understanding the temple architecture, and then finally ending up in the monastery in Gujarat. And we were getting shown around by the senior sadhu, and I remember we were sitting on the steps on their most holiest temple. He was telling me the story of the three holy rivers. It'd be so beautiful if we could tie that together. And we had our sketch pad out, and he was sketching, his idea, and that was just a 10-minute moment. And then that 10-minute moment is now driven all the way through the design of the project. That then drove us into thinking of how we could create a temple which was actually set into the landscape and actually became an oasis for people to come together in harmony, a place of tolerance, a place for people to actually be enlightened by the religion. And beside the rivers, we then created these monolithic buildings, which was a complete contrast to the temple. The temple actually sits on the sand dune, and then you enter inside the sand dune as an arrival experience.
And then you go into this temple complex, and then there is a moment where you turn right and you look at the temple and the steps leading up to it with the complex that we designed engulfing it in the landscape. The arrival into the temple complex is something which it's going to get the pulses racing every time you visit. We always used to joke with the sadhus, so they're going to drive us out of business because they actually get into every single detail, as if they themselves are designing and building it because they want to feel it.
They're trained in the fine arts, so their understanding of art, poetry, science is very, very highly intellectual.
We usually don't see this kind of brief coming from the client, which actually had flow charts and diagrams of how they want a visitor to experience the temple, how they want a VIP to experience the temple, how they want a devotee to experience the temple. For example, there is monastery within the part of the complex where the sadhus live, and there is a hall where the supreme leader, the head saint, comes and stays there. So the way we designed it was when the saint comes and sits there, he also has a backdrop of the temple with the sun rising on the east. There are a lot of hidden stories. Wherever you stand in the temple, this temple is supposed to last more than 1,000 years, so they don't allow any ferrous material, any steel into the foundation stone. We actually did some very detailed analysis to convince the local authority that this temple can actually sit on a concrete plinth, which is 5 meter deep, without any steel in it. There was a consultant from one of the volunteers from the Mandir, a specialist from Canada, who actually went and installed thousands of sensors as the construction progressed, which actually tracks how the movement happened. While the stone temple itself is very traditional, the setting and the aspirations, experience is very cutting edge. And as you can imagine, these are like solid monolithic stones which will actually absorb all the heat. The temple can heat up quite a bit. We actually brought in the latest systems, engineering systems to cool the temple. Then we coordinated with the artisans and the artists and the sculptors to hide these systems.
Another aspect that we brought through then was the materiality.
Actually, Michael was very keen to have these as monolithic blocks of stone, mimicking the stone temple itself. But then we looked at how we can do it more cost effectively. Michael came with this idea of having this GRC panels with texture on it, but then having these lines on it which mimic the temple's architecture in terms of proportions.
We then pushed the boundaries of how big these panels could go, and how we could also give each panel a unique form and shape. So there was a lot of experimentation, there was a lot of mock-ups, and then there was a lot of design development.
The main interest is to create a center where people can come and get a different experience, which is to calm down from the materialistic lives that we lead, go into a more spiritual setting, and yet make it attractive enough for people to want to visit. But what was amazing to us is when we finished the design and they looked at the budget, it was still much higher than what they had budgeted for, but they didn't compromise. And now it's getting built, and we have been there a couple of times recently also, Michael and I, and then it's very impressive how the integrity of the design has been preserved in the execution.
We're very excited to actually see this come to life and experience the spaces, experience the materiality, and we really look forward to sharing that moment with our families.